Sable Hills in Pretoria East is envied for its panoramic rolling hills and breathtaking countryside. It's a tranquil, small-town village known for its friendly farming community where everybody knows their neighbors. But on the 2nd of June 2012, the inhabitants of Sable Hills were shocked beyond belief when the reputation of their peaceful community would be transformed to a town of horror and terror. Every Sunday morning, Byron Man takes his dog Domino for a quiet walk to enjoy the fresh air and admire the beautiful countryside of Sable Hills. But on Sunday morning, the 2nd of June 2012, Byron and Domino made a gruesome discovery of a badly decomposed body that was lying next to the road in a shallow grave. Byron and Domino approached the dead victim. The victim was covered with leaves, and only parts of the victim's body were visible on the scene. In shock, Byron contacted the local police.
Hello? Hi, this is the number for the police. I just want to report, I've just come across a dead body in the park over here. Yeah, while I was walking my dog.
Minutes after the call, police arrived at the crime scene. The forensic technicians started to unravel and investigate what were the remains of a brutal homicide. It seems as if the victim was shot 3 times with a semi-automatic pistol. It was discovered that the victim was a 30-year-old male known as Mr. Gary Lewis. The victim was identified by dental records. Mr. Lewis was the owner of a cattle ranch 30 kilometers outside the town of Sable Hills. Fellow townspeople described Gary as a hard-working farmer who loved the outdoors and the countryside. Gary stayed alone on his farm with his servant and butler. A crime scene can tell you any number of things. At the crime scene of Mr. Lewis, 2 empty bullet cartridges were collected. Fibers, DNA samples, and pieces of clothing were also collected from the victim. Further evidence and the murder weapon was discovered in a trash can near the victim's home. The community of Sable Hills were outraged by the murder of Gary Lewis, and they wanted justice. After investigators and forensic technicians recovered all the evidence is sent to a forensic lab for further investigation. Investigators turned to ballistic evidence to determine if the bullets that were found on the crime scene belonged to the firearm that was collected from the trash. A bullet will carry with it evidence. There will be blood on it, and it can have fibers from the victim's clothes. All these pieces of evidence are carefully collected and sampled as evidence. You can get the trajectory history of the bullet in the form of physical evidence. Each firearm transfers a unique mark to a fired bullet. With ballistic evidence, one can match the fired bullet to the firearm. A test bullet is fired from the recovered firearm. The test bullet markings are compared to those bullets that are recovered from the crime scene. This analysis is done by a comparison microscope and comparison software. Newer ballistics technology now involves three-dimensional software that can line up the compared markings on the side of a fired cartridge and on the firing pin. Investigators could make an exact comparison from the gun barrel scratches that were made on the crime scene bullets and on the test bullets. The forensic technician collected some blood samples for DNA testing of the clothes, murder weapon and other evidence that was collected from the crime scene. Fingerprints were collected from the firearm. Hair samples and other tissue samples were also analyzed and researched. There were only two suspects for the homicide, the servant and the butler. Both suspects were brought in for questioning. Neither of them admitted to the murder of Gary Lewis. Both suspects' fingerprints and DNA samples were collected for further forensic analysis. The results came back from the laboratories. The empty bullets from the homicide were traced back to the stolen firearm of the victim. Forensic DNA and ballistic comparison could prove that the murder weapon was stolen by the butler. It seems as if the motive for the killing was about a wage dispute. Forensic evidence could prove that the butler, known as Patrick Howard, committed the homicide. He was charged with the murder of Gary Lewis. Patrick Howard was sentenced to lifelong imprisonment at the Pretoria C-Max prison. Today, modern science and forensic technology brings criminals to justice and speak for those who cannot speak for themselves.